Welcome to Point to Rise, your podcast that gives you permission to dream big, take messy action, and turn your talent into profit while turning your back on perfection. My name is Suzanne Purcell, high performance and mindset coach, former international ballerina, profitable entrepreneur, and founder of Point to Rise, a movement designed to empower dancers. It is my mission to use my own story as an inspiration for today's generation of dancers. And now sit back, stretch, warm up, or sip your coffee and love learning how much it matters to point at yourself first to rise to all that you are capable of.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have a very special treat for you. Today, the new executive director of Arizona Ballet, Jami, and please hang on. It's a complicated last name, and I'm hoping that I'm saying that right. Jami Kozemczak is joining us in our conversation today. So I invited her because I wanted to have a conversation with a woman in a leadership role that has raised over $36 million since 2015 for the company. What are her secrets? How is she looking at the future? So let me give you a little bit of a background on Jami. So as a director of development for the company since 2015, Jami has a record of consistently meeting and exceeding contributed revenue goals to advance the organization. During her tenure at Ballet Arizona, the organization established a culture and philanthropy that permeates the organization. Jami has secured more than $36 million in contributed revenue during her time at Ballet Arizona and led the charge for the Be Our Bridge Recovery and Relief Fund that ensured all staff members and dancers remained fully employed during the COVID-19 crisis. Jami is very experienced in arts and nonprofit management, including fundraising, public relations, communications, donor relations, and marketing. She transitioned to fundraising after discovering her true vocation was helping to connect donors to their passion. Jami holds a bachelor degree in political science from Arizona State University. She is a co-chair for the AFP Professional Mentoring Program and a board member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. Wow. All right. Well, without no further ado, let's dive into this wonderful powerhouse of a woman and let us share her gifts with you. Jami, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I have been looking forward to this conversation all week long. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to it as well. And I feel very honored that you reached out to invite me to have this conversation with you.
Well, thank you. Let me congratulate you one more time on actually being appointed the executive director of Arizona Ballet as of next week, July 1st. Yes. How do you feel about it? Not about it? Like, what's the process? All of it.
That's a great question, and it has a lot of responses. I feel many things right now, and it is mostly inspiration. I feel inspired every day. I cannot believe that I have this opportunity to do the job of my dreams. And I feel so grateful to the board, and all of the staff was extremely supportive of me during this process. And so it's my dreams coming true. And so I feel mostly inspired, but also overwhelmed, to be honest. This is a huge role and a tremendous responsibility. And I have to do right by this organization because there are so many people that are involved and part of this organization. And I have to make sure that I'm leading us together. And I just want us to be successful. So there's a lot happening. I'm waking up at 3 every morning and working in my head. So it's just the ideas won't stop coming. And I'm just, it's a little overwhelming, to be honest, right now. So
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because that is so, we don't often say that, when we're growing, when we're being put into a new role, or when we're stepping outside of what feels, let's say, not comfortable, but familiar to us, that our our old self is being challenged, and therefore we are working through all the limitations that are coming up consistently. Actually, my husband and I were on a walk this morning, as we do every morning, and we were talking about that childish anxiety that is, it feels great, but now we're growing ups. We're questioning ourselves in ways, right? Like we have to do it right. And we came up with that discomfort that we're feeling is actually not a sign of inadequacy. It's a sign of growth and evolvement. And how can we change our perception versus denying it, opening ourselves up and actually letting it in?
Hmm.
So, okay, let's just not quite go to your role and work. What is your superpower? Or what would you say are your superpowers?
Oh, wow. My superpowers. I would say that my ability to, you know, I have an innate ability to lead. I think that it's just, I'm one of those natural born leaders. And I think the reason for it is because of my relationship building. Everything that I do, everything about me, everything, all of me is centered around people. And when I went through this interview process and part, the questions and working with the board and working with the staff, they said, what motivates you? What inspires you? And I said, I love working for this art form, but I love the dancers and I love the staff and I love the audiences and I love those magical moments that happen in between our art form being delivered because it's the people that make it happen. And so I think that that would be my ability to build and maintain strong relationships would be my superpower that indirectly or directly contributes to my ability to lead people as well.
Those magical moments in the middle.
Yeah.
I have had quite a few conversations with let's say leaders in arts organization, and we're 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 trying to figure out what is the untangible that performing arts, particularly ballet, is here to deliver. What kind of a problem are we solving? I am very curious. What is your take on that?
Hmm. Well, I think that that is the question that we all strive to answer working in the arts field, because when you work in nonprofit, you can always look to other organizations and say, oh, how easy they must have it. They, when they work in, social services, oh, their problem that they're trying to solve is homelessness. That's such an easy problem to articulate. Or they work at St. Mary's Food Bank, and what they're trying to solve is they're trying to eliminate hunger. Or in education, we're trying to make sure that everyone has access to high quality education. Those intangibles or tangibles seem very easy to articulate. And I feel like in my experience only, I can't speak for others that work in the arts, but I feel like the arts, sometimes the intangibles are hard to articulate. And when you are in times of economic turmoil or economic downturn, this is not anything other than fact, is that the arts are the first to go and the last to recover. You can look at all of the performing arts organizations around the country, and you would venture to guess that most, if not all, could say, we have just now started recovering from the 2008 Great Recession levels. And, when you look at Giving USA, which they just released all of their data this past week, when you look at funding across different areas in the nonprofit sector, arts and culture are the lowest. So being able to share, and I think storytelling is our greatest tool in our toolbox with articulating how we solve problems. And when we become the best versions of ourselves is when art is part of our lives. And I think that, you have to, in a society that is as wonderful as the one that we get to live in, arts and culture have to be part of it. And so to be able to share in those human experiences that connect us via storytelling and performance art, those are those magical moments that connect us as human beings. And I think that that is that what we need. And that's the problem that we're trying to solve, is making sure that we stay connected in that way. Because without it, there's a void in our lives. And so trying not to have that void is extremely important.
Beautiful said. I want to share something with you because I I was in LA not too long ago. There was a very pronounced school that had, mentored and basically brought out some really great talent, and they had put on their end of year show. And I said, well, I actually should go and check it out. And I sat in the audience and I just let whatever was coming across from the stage happen without judgment, without any kind of expectation, and just let them shower me and really just give. And that allowed me to actually step away from any kind of expectations that I had, or saying, that leg wasn't big high enough, or that turn wasn't great. And I just let their souls really talk to me. And that was the part that really filled me up, that filled my heart up, that let me walk a little lighter, that let me not only feel connected to them, but also more connected to myself. And I think that's the part, that when we actually connect with somebody else, we also open ourselves up to connect to ourselves. And that's the gap that
Mhm.
we're really initiating by inspiring, hmm, inspiring others through our art, I would
Mm.
say. And it was just such a beautiful, because, being in the industry for so many years, like you get very focused and stingy, and you tend to take on that energy of nothing is ever good enough. At least that was my experience. That it really took quite some years to let that go and to release that, and to be able to just to be an audience member that could just experience the miracles that are happening in between.
Mhm.
So I think it's not only connecting with other people, but it's also helping us to connect back to ourselves and really truly remember, besides all the distraction, who we are, what we want, and what we're actually capable of.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things I admire most about ballet dancers is they're constantly striving for perfection. And once they hit what we have as our perceived perfection as an audience member, or as an advocate of the art, when we see, and that you still never attain that level of perfection, because now you've just, raised the bar, to use the ballet pun. But it's like, I'm in awe of what ballet dancers and our artistic, staff really do, and what they push forward and how they drive themselves. It's really wonderful to see. So I'm glad that you were able to become an audience member and not be, driving yourself toward that same perfection, and just experience it as a patron.
Well, yeah, because I had to come to the realization, for me, for myself, that striving for perfection for me was actually in the way. And not only in the way of enjoyment, but also in the way of being proactive, being productive, to actually become an entrepreneur, to have conversations like this, to reach out to people and say, hey, I find you very intriguing and super interesting. I would love to have a conversation with you. Would you
Mhm.
be open to that? I couldn't have done that 5 years ago. And that really, for me, meant I had to let go of that need of being perfect. Excellence is what I'm striving for. I'm striving for being better,
Mhm.
more limitless than I was yesterday.
Mhm.
And making that jump still sometimes feels like coughing up an old virus.
Mhm. Mhm.
Pardon the yeah, but that's still like, the
Mhm.
one that the ogre
Mhm.
wants to come in and tell me not to. So
Oh.
yeah, but it's normal, right? Like, we're spending so many years of like never finding ourselves being good enough. And no matter what we do, we cannot see that we actually did a great job. And
Mhm.
that's sometimes where the dancer's mind can go if it's not being caught, that the recovery from it is, well, it's a journey like anything else. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I think striving for excellence is the ultimate goal, not striving for perfection. I think that's the perfect way to say that. Mhm.
Okay. Let's talk about money. Okay.
Hey.
Okay. So let's let me take us back to March 2020 when everything closed down. We could not perform, operations shut down. Many companies actually found themselves not even being able to fundraise. You led a very beautiful initiative in and at Arizona Ballet. Could you explain what that was? How did you think of that? And what was the outcome?
Oh, I wish I could take credit for all of this great work, but I
Well,
can't. No,
you can
no.
share.
This was something that if I could look at my career at Ballet Arizona, might have been the most rewarding experience. But then again, every day is rewarding, and I say that all the time, so I don't want to sound cliche, but this was a time that was the hardest and most challenging time that this organization and all arts organizations went through. And what happened was we were in the middle of figuring out what we were going to do with our budgets for the upcoming fiscal year. We had just cut our gala that had raised $500,000, and we were begging all of the patrons, please don't ask us to refund. Let us just keep this as a donation, and we promise we'll make good in the future when we can come back to live. And all of the donations from subscriptions and the tickets, the 90% of the people in our community responded positively. They said, we want to help you. We don't want Ballet Arizona to go under. We want to make sure that you get on the other side of this and that you survive. And so the generosity that poured from this community was one of the most inspiring things I've ever witnessed. And it really fueled my fire. And so what happened was one day we had one of our major benefactors who's been a board member for many, many years, very involved in our organization. She picked up the phone, called our executive director, Samantha Turner, and she said, we're going to help. Let us know what you need. We're going to make sure Ballet Arizona gets through this. And so Samantha and I together kind of mapped out, Samantha did everything we needed for payroll. How can we make sure that we can retain the dancers? And when I said, everyone remained employed, no one got laid off, but there were senior staff level furloughs. A few of us had to take. It wasn't the entire organization. And there was a certain threshold of salary where if you made this amount, no one making that amount or below we would give them a furlough because we wanted to just protect those that are, to the best of our ability. And so Samantha worked on that, and we came together with this donor, and they made the seed gift to make sure that we launched. It was a $1.1 million campaign just to get us through. It wasn't a big capital campaign or anything like this. This is just covering the loss of revenue just to keep the dancers and staff employed, because we said, if we don't have them together, then how are we going to get everybody back together to recover from this? And so it was a collaborative effort, a lot of planning, a lot of generosity, but it started with, Jackie and Bennett Doritz reaching out to us and saying, we're going to make this gift to help you get through. Samantha Turner, her leadership, and the artistic director, Eve Anderson, all of us in a room planning together really helped shape and mold. And I would love to say that I coined the name Be Our Bridge, but Samantha came up with that name and we led it. And now I did the campaign. I put all of the wheels in motion. I led the effort. I did most of the fundraising. And so I will take credit for fleshing out all of the details and the campaign planning and execution, because there were a lot of components and moving parts, but I had a lot of help. And I think that that's how it is with everything that we do, is that we don't operate in a silo. We have a lot of help to pull these things off and come together. So it was a lot. And in the end of the day, I think we raised that year the most we've ever raised, not being inside of a capital campaign. People were extremely generous and just calling, and checks were just coming in the mail that were surprises. It was a time where we had some ugly cries in the office with phone calls from donors, from the gratitude that we had on the other end. Receiving some of these gifts were just really wonderful. So
Jamie, thank you so much for sharing that because, well, two things. I don't think we often enough, and not often enough, do we talk about gratitude when it comes to how organizations are running and who is actually truly involved in making that possible, or
mhm.
keeping things going and making it without the begging, and like just how it sometimes comes across, that your community that you have so beautifully built came together and said, this is not even a question. Like, we cannot lay off the dancers or the administrative stuff. Where I know of many examples where they were just all laid off,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that you didn't allow that. And that was not even coming in as an option. I honor that so deeply. So thank you. Because it's
Well,
such a big difference, right? It makes a difference in how you as an organization altogether move forward. The dancers weren't the last thing to take care of. It was
mhm.
important that everybody's on the same level. And that's what I want to point out. We don't often see that. Metropolitan, oh no, New York City Philharmonics, they still are taking only 75% until September of 2024 of their salary to recover from the pandemic.
Mhm.
And it's not the administrative staff, it's the
Mhm.
musicians, right?
Mhm.
And I'm just saying I'm so grateful for what choices you have made in that crisis situation.
Mhm. Well, it is we were really thrilled to be able to do that, and it's our leadership, executive, artistic, and board. The board could have came in and said, this is, as the fiduciary body, this is not the best use of these resources. We have to dip into our reserves, and this is not a direction that we want to go. And so they need to be lauded for the same commitment to the people in this organization as well, because they're among those that voted to approve these, budgets for the COVID year that we went into, and said, we'll help you do it. And they made sure that our biggest thing with the campaign and the recovery fund was 100% board participation is required. We need your help. And in order for us to go out to the community and fundraise in this way, we need to lead by example. And every board member participated. And so it was really encouraging to see everyone together. We were united. And that's why I think we were so successful, is because of the support we had from leadership and board to pull that off together.
I think it also showed that everybody is somewhere, somewhat in a leadership position. You can take directions, but if you don't take parts of whatever that direction is as your own and make it your own
Hmm.
thing to lead, then you won't be as successful. So that is actually a sign of extreme, beautiful leadership that we also don't often see in organizations in the performing arts. And which actually intriguing. And let me ask you that question. Why do you think that is? Because leadership is such an essential component of well-functioning organization, nonprofit or profit, it doesn't matter. Um, why do we sometimes see these large gaps between, let's say, leadership teams or C-level executives in performing arts organization and the actual product, the dancers, the artists?
That's such a great question that I don't think I have the perfect answer to. When I see gaps in leadership, it is around not being united. I've seen instances where I've seen boards that were divided, or when you have a dual leadership model, such as theater company, ballet companies, the arts have this unique dual leadership model that is artistic and executive functioning together, because I could not be the artistic vision of this organization. I do not have the experience. I'm not an artist. And so having Eve's vision be part of the driving force, that the executive function, that is a unique situation that we are always present or presented with. And if we're divided, we will not be successful. And so, if there are ever gaps in leadership that I've seen in arts organizations, it's where that gap is present either in the board or in the senior leadership and managing together. So, you have to be on the same page and you have to be going forward together. Otherwise, it's hard enough to manage an arts organization in a healthy environment, let alone in a time of economic turmoil or duress, or a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic. So, even at our best times, the arts nonprofit performing arts is challenged, right? With finding funding. And so if you have to then combat sort of a lack of unison or leadership together, then you're just fighting yourselves. And so I think that that's where I would see the biggest deficiency. But I wouldn't feel experienced or knowledgeable enough to comment across the sector broadly in that way. I feel like there's just so many other things that I would have to learn and see in order to really give you a great answer for that question.
I think that was a really great answer to just give you credit.
Thank you.
Well, because it's your perception, it's your perspective, and that's
Mhm.
really all I was looking for, right? Because
For sure.
you're way more integrated than I am, for example, right now.
Mhm.
Now, when what do you think on like a greater scale? How long do you think it is going to take for the performing arts to actually recover from the impact of 2020? And let's take into consideration what we're calling, the big reset, the big realignment, the I
Mhm.
don't know, the bear market, the recession, the inflation. Now we can use all of these doom and gloom terms, but how, like, A, what and how could recovery look like? And B, do you think there's a way we could make that actually turn and turn it this way that it could work into, let's say, into our favor? Because to every downfall, there's always an up, right? There's always the other side of the medal.
Mhm.
I know two questions at once. I couldn't answer them too. So you just start with the first one and then I'll.
Yes. Yes. Well, I wish I had a crystal ball that I could predict what's going to happen. I think every person wishes they had a crystal ball. We don't know what's coming. I will say that there's a lot of research out there and a lot of conversations with some EDs around the country. I have heard, them saying we're starting to think 3 to 5 years out is what we're thinking in terms of full recovery. And so that is when we put forward our budget projections for this upcoming fiscal year. We operate on a July 1, June 30 fiscal year. So we're about ready to close out the year and embark on the new one. And I think that we still have conservative revenue numbers in there because we're not certain about what the economic climate is going to be in terms of fundraising. Are we going into a recession? And that is a very scary place because right now our fundraising work is exceeding our ticketed revenue. And normally it's the opposite. Normally, our ticketed revenue from all of our performances is what is the greatest revenue generator for the organization. And so we are having conservative projections put forward for some of our shows because regardless of what we're seeing, the demand is less than what it was prior to COVID still. And whether that is, there are some patrons that we've spoken to that say, I just don't think I'm ever going to come back to a theater with 2,000 people again. Now, that is a small group of people, but how does that translate and what is the impact really for us overall? When we did our Nutcracker performances, we had record breaking sales, the highest revenue numbers that we've ever done for Nutcracker, and also the highest number of attendees that we've had in, I think, since Eve Anderson's Nutcracker launched back in 2006 or 2007. So that showed us, wow, there was pent up demand, audience demand for this production, coming back to the tradition, family, holiday time. A lot of people losing that tradition really made them want to re-engage with the arts in that way. It was kind of, and when you talked about, so kind of transitioning into the second part of your question, when you talk about the bright spots, I sat down with some individuals that helped us during that COVID Be Our Bridge Recovery Fund. They came through with a tremendous gift and we got to know them very, very well. It was a family that we've become close to now. And they then, this past summer, sat down with us and they said, you know what? We are going to do a multi year gift with you. And it's going to be more significant than the COVID relief gift. And we're going to give you $500,000 and we're going to make this commitment to you. And I said, I can't even believe that this wonderful gift has happened. And it's on the heels of COVID. And this woman, she's fabulous. She looked at me and she said, well, Jamie, COVID taught us what we really find what we really need to focus on and what's really important in life. And what we are saying is this commitment is that we want to make sure that you're okay. We love your organization, and COVID showed us what's important. And so there is that silver lining, and that bright spot there is that maybe when you talk about the great reset, which I haven't heard that, I'm going to have to research that a little bit, but maybe it is a reset in that what do we find important, and maybe realigning our priorities, family, people, relationships, what is the most important thing, and seeing how the arts fit in there. I think we learned that the arts were the only thing that got us through COVID with any sort of, I mean, that's what we were doing, was consuming art all the time because we were stuck in our homes and we weren't able to do anything else. And so, yes, maybe in a digital platform, or, but that's what we were doing. And the arts kept us alive through that time. So there's a little bit of a bright spot in all of the messiness, I think.
There always is, and I deeply, truly believe in that. Yeah. So it's they call it the great reset or the realignment because you're right. Those, I would say, 6 months really where we're all, you know, forced to really go within. There were no more distractions, no work, no calls, no chasing, no nothing, no kids dropping off and picking up in school and to really, we had to go within. We had to focus on, okay, what does matter to us? Is the day to day really serving me right now? Is this really what I want? Is
Mhm.
this really how I want to spend the rest of my life? Or is there something else, something more? I think there was a study released last year around this time around consumer behavior. And it showed, the research showed that 2020 actually completely shifted consumer behavior, where before it was more about, can I get the best for the least amount of money? That was the focus. That's how people purchased. That's how people engaged. Now, after the release of the constrictions of the pandemic, people are asking way more questions. For them, it's important. What are these organizations do? What kind of products, when they're putting it out, are they actually releasing? How do employees really treat it? What they're standing for, what they're against? What's the impact on the environment? How do I feel when I'm actually in that community? And that's important to them. And I think that's where arts organizations actually have a little bit of an advantage because without community, we never functioned. Like we would have never found our way through, many, many decades of fundraising without a community. And that's what many people are seeking more so now than they've ever. So I think that could be an upside too.
hmm I agree with you completely. I think that people are looking for authenticity and meaning in ways that are deeper than what we were looking for prior.
Okay. Personal question. What's your biggest fear?
Not being good enough.
Oh, honey. Thank you for sharing. I'll share mine just so and I'm sure you can relate. It is not being good enough or being worthy. And I really truly want to let that go because it has never really served me,
Mm,
anybody, never ever. The bigger fear is actually having evidence in front of me that I am not good enough for the dreams that I have.
mm,
That's like my next level of not being good enough. And I'm starting to sweat just talking about that.
mhm,
But that's,
mhm,
where I know that would bring me to my knees. And
mhm,
that would be that one trigger where I would say, I'm done. I'm good. Just feel an ugly cry under the desk. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. Your biggest learn
mhm.
from the past 2 years.
Mm. It goes back to something I've kind of already said, is just the value of people and relationships. Is just, that is, to me personally, that is everything. That is my motivation. That is my inspiration. That is the why behind what I do. And it just solidified for me that I am doing what I love, and I get to do what I love. And I feel so fortunate that not many people do. And so to work in this space of constant gratitude and generosity is so fulfilling and so rewarding that I just feel blessed and privileged to get to work at this. And I think that that was a great learning for me is I already knew that I valued those things, but to really have it so clearly articulated in a way that I'll never forget this. None of us will ever forget this time that we've gone through. And so for me, for it to just really, truly show my values come to life, it was pretty impactful.
Current book that you're reading?
The first 90 days.
Oh,
I know. That was recommended to me by a mentor and coach that I have who was guiding me through this process of becoming the executive director.
Wow.
And he said, Jamie, the very first thing I want you to do before you start your 90 days is read this book. It's extremely insightful. It will help you. And that'll help you put together your 90-day plan as the new leader of this organization. So I wish I could say it was something fun. But it is fun. It is
fun.
It is fun. I'm learning so much. And once I complete this homework assignment and have my 90-day plan, it's due in 8. It's all here. It just hasn't been put on paper yet. Or it kind of has in different notebooks all over my office. But then I will do some sort of summer reading that is lighthearted and fun. And I don't know if you have a recommendation, I'm all ears because I have a ballet book from one of our donors that's about this thick that he gave me as a gift as the new ED. And he said, here you go. This is some light summer reading for you. And I said, that is the opposite of light summer reading. This is a homework assignment. So
Oh, how generous.
it was very generous. It was so kind. And I can't wait to read it, honestly. So
I apologize. I am not a light reader kind of person. I just don't. I'm rereading and one of my favorite books. It's The Big Leap by Gay Hendrick.
uh-huh.
I can only recommend. It's about hitting our upper limit. It's all about what's in our way, the limitations that we put in our own way, how we fight for them on a daily basis. It's all about the science, what we do when we hit our upper limit. It's very insightful, not only for oneself, but also to, particularly when we're in leadership roles, to actually identify that the behavior that some people that are working with you demonstrating, it has nothing to do with fears. It just has to do with, or inadequacy. It has to do with that they actually have reached the upper limit. And just gently, how can we help them through? So yeah, it's a great book. I think this is the third time I'm reading it.
Well, I just wrote it down. Thank you. I will definitely download that. So
Awesome. Well, great. All right. And this is one of the last questions. Let's go back to your 16-year-old self and let's just assume she would sit down with you, with who you are today, and listen to you. What would you tell her?
I would tell her it's okay that you don't fit inside a box. You never have and you never will. And you're going to end up just fine doing exactly what you love. And you don't need to try to fit inside that box.
Box fitting. You talk my language.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. We're going to do a follow-up on that topic because it's such a big one, right? Like if we're looking at, well, I'm talking from my own experience. I'm not going to put this on yours, but as a woman in leadership in an organization, I was put in a box very much. So I put myself in a box as a mother. I put myself in a box and let myself put in a box as a dancer, even sometimes as a leader, a woman leader. I allowed being to be put in a box. And it's such a, well, that's where the big leap comes in, right? Like, let's break down those walls. Let's make our own tables. Let's pull up the chairs and we don't have to fit in. We can just be us. And that makes us so special. So yeah, I just told my 16-year-old self the same thing. Okay, Jamie, thank you so much for your time. I'm giving you the biggest hug. You are just perfect. You don't need to fit in. You are good enough. You're great. And I truly believe that, well, the organization has picked the best leader to lead them into whatever is coming now. So,
Well, thank you. That's quite a compliment, and I appreciate it. And I very much enjoyed getting to know you and spending this time with you today. So, thank you for reaching out to me. This is my very first official interview as the executive director of Ballet Arizona. And so, this will be one of those memorable moments that I will never forget, thanks to you. So, it's been a pleasure.
oh, thank you, Jamie. Before we get off, though, let's not forget. So what's coming up 22-23 season for everybody that's in Phoenix, or if you're ever traveling through, do
Mhm.
not miss out on visiting Arizona Ballet. You
Yes.
won't miss,
Yes.
should not miss attending a show. So, A, where can we find you and the company and what's on the books for next season?
Yes, we have a great season. It is, let's see, we start with our contemporary program, the Contemporary Moves. It's a series of three shorter ballets that are from different artists. We're doing a piece by our own Nyan Ivino, who is one of our, for all intents and purposes, kind of what we would consider a resident choreographer. He does many, many different pieces for us, and everything that he does is just incredible. He was one of three people that went through the New York Choreographic Institute back before COVID. I think this was 2018 or 2019. He was partnered with a Juilliard composer, and they created a world premiere from scratch, both the composition and the performance and choreography. And so we get to look forward to a new piece from him. We have a Christopher Wheeldon ballet that we are doing. And then I believe that we have something from Alejandro Cerruto, who's the newest artistic director at, I believe, Charlotte Ballet. So that's going to be a very engaging and unique contemporary program. That's our patron base, our donors, our people that love ballet. That's their favorite every year. It's just because it's just an eclectic mix and it's always new and it always pushes the envelope. Then we roll into Cinderella, which is one of our big storybook ballets. It's Eve Anderson's Cinderella. He premiered that in 2012 or 13, if I remember correctly. And that's just was a blockbuster for us and a great success. And then we have our Nutcracker, right? Everyone always has our traditional Nutcracker at a ballet company. And we're doing Giselle in the spring. That will be in the February sort of storybook that we've done. We haven't done that since 2010 or 2011. So it will be new to Arizona audiences in the sense that no one's done a Giselle in quite some time. And I'm very much looking forward to it. I've never seen Giselle. I've heard it's hauntingly beautiful. And
Oh,
just, yes, I've never seen it. I'm sure you probably performed it at some point, but I'm very much looking forward to it. And then we have our balancing rep that we always do as part of the legacy of Eve Anderson and him, being a protege of balancing, working with him so closely. We have the wonderful opportunity to perform balancing works here at Ballet Arizona. And then from there, we do this is uniquely Arizonan, is an outdoor performance for 3 weeks at Desert Botanical Garden. I don't know if you've ever been to Arizona or Desert Botanical Garden, but it is a magical place all in its own. And this was visionary from our artistic director, but also some board members at the time that came together and said, there is this marriage between art and nature and the beauty of the Sonoran Desert that we can come together in a space and do new works there. And so Eve Anderson is going to be choreographing a world premiere. And so that's how we round out our season. It's kind of what we call the Nutcracker of the summer, is
yeah.
because it's just as intense as the 3 weeks at Symphony Hall with the Nutcracker, but it's a completely different ballet experience. It's the perfect entree to dance for people that might be intimidated by ballet or not sophisticated by their perception. It's a perfect way to introduce new audiences to our art form.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So, if you are in the Phoenix area, go and subscribe. You have season tickets available, I'm
We
assuming.
do. We
Yes.
do. Yep. And it's balletaz.org, Ballet Arizona. Mhm.
Beautiful. Check out their Instagram. It's gorgeous. And you're also on LinkedIn and you're very active on LinkedIn, which you have a background in marketing. I have learned many things about marketing over the past 2 years. So I really appreciate it. And I can only recommend having a good, stable presence on LinkedIn as well.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I will give kudos to our marketing team for making sure that they do great work. They really do.
They do. They really do. So yes, please pass that on. I love it. Okay, Jamie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If anything resonated with you today, please share it on Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok or wherever your platform is. Forward this episode to somebody that should hear it. And again, if you're in Phoenix, go visit the Arizona Ballet. All right, you guys, we're sending you so much love. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.